So, Canon has just dropped a new lens, and it's the 200 to 800 zoom lens. It's an f6.3 to an f9, and it's image stabilized with USM motors. And I'm going to be honest, it's got me thinking about selling not only my 800 f11, but also my 100 to 400, just so I can have it. Let's dig in. So first and foremost, I want to cover why I want this lens, and primarily it's because of the versatility. It is a wide zoom range, typically what I would use for wildlife and also sometimes for landscapes. From everything that I'm reading, it is also sharper. We're going to check on some reviews here in a few moments, but we'll get back to that. It is white, like a lot of Canon's notorious L lenses. However, it is not an L lens. So you are going to get better results sharpness-wise, contrast-wise, and all that stuff from something like the RF 100 to 500 f4.5 to f7.1, which we do also own. But Jennifer typically takes that, so I don't ever get to use it. So before we get started on all the positives and why I want this thing, let's talk about the few negatives that it has. First and foremost, it is expensive for a hobbyist lens. It's going to come in at about $18.99, and that's US dollars because American. It does lack collar stops at 0 and 90 degrees, which that's not a huge deal to me. Collar can get in the way of the zoom lens when it's facing downward, so, I mean, I have tiny hands. Not a big deal. It is a smaller aperture, so I am going to have to push the ISO. But, you know, it's still going to be brighter than this 800 here, which is, again, an f11. The stabilization mode is set to on or off. You don't have the varying stabilization modes like the 100 to 500 has. And there is no focus limiter switch. So that can be an issue for some people. It's not something I typically use, so not a huge deal to me. Lastly, this thing is pretty heavy, which you can expect with a lens this big, this wide of a zoom range, and this varying aperture. So it comes in at 2.05 kilograms, which in American terms here translates to 4.519 pounds. Essentially, you're going to get about a 5-pound package, if not more, with the camera lens and the body, depending on which body you're using. This will most likely be on my R5 most of the time. Now, let's talk about the positives. So, there's 2 function buttons attached to it, which are nice little things to have. It does come with the control ring that we are known with the RF lenses. I will say this is kind of a bittersweet thing, because the control ring can function as the control ring or as your focuser. Very rare that I go into manual focus using during wildlife, expeditions, we'll call them. But just something to be mindful of. The foot on it does not have a Arca Swiss built in, but, throw one on there. Again, not a huge deal. The lens itself is weather sealed, and it is a non-internal zoom. So I like external zooms for the sole fact that they compact down a little bit better, so easier to fit in bags. I do know that this can be an issue for some people with letting dust or moisture in. It's very rare that I'm out shooting in those kind of conditions, so again, not a huge deal, but something to be mindful of if you are regularly in dusty or moist conditions, that this is an external zoom. For the zoom on the lens, it does have the smooth and tight adjustment ring, and those that have shot on the 100 to 500 are familiar with that. I do believe that's the only lens that comes on currently. So that's a nice little thing. It does also have little strap holsters built into it, so you can directly attach a strap to the lens, which I think is pretty cool. Now, here's the most important part to me. The versatility of this lens is going to be huge. I'm not super well versed, especially with the 800, at grabbing onto subjects being that far, having that close of a field of view. So something that I'm, working on as regularly as possible, but we shoot a lot of weddings right now. We shoot a lot of portraits, family sessions, so it's not that often that I get to get out and do wildlife and birding and all that stuff. What I'm seeing review-wise and image sample-wise is that this lens is far superior to the 800 f11. Not only that, but you get almost a full stop of brightness better on the aperture, so I'm even willing to sacrifice a little bit of sharpness just for that slight brighter where I don't have to push the ISO so much. Now, from everything that I'm reading from f-stoppers, from Petapixel, from all of your typical review sites, this thing is far superior image quality wise to the 800. So that's very exciting for me because I thought this lens was great, especially like if you're working on a budget and you want to do wildlife. While that lens is coming in a little bit more expensive, I think I can turn these two lenses around and be at a reasonable place, like somewhere that I feel comfortable spending the money on something that I don't particularly like make money on. So another thing that we get with this lens is the 5.5 stops of optical image stabilization, and that's built into the lens. So if you do have a body that offers more image stabilization, you're going to get up to 8 stops. Where this is going to be a slight issue is on the further end of the zoom range. You're basically just working with the optical stabilization. Again, that's still pretty good. Getting the full 5.5 stops out at 800 millimeters, more than enough for me, and I'll be completely content with that. But something to think about. Are you going to find a lens that offers as much as this lens offers right now in this price point? No, it's not going to happen. You're looking at potentially moving up to like a RF 400, f4, and at that point, 800 millimeters is going to be an f8 anyway. Plus, you're going to have to buy the RF lens itself and the 2x extender, or looking into the RF 800 f5.6, which is $20,000. So I do think this is a great, hobbyist, budget-friendly, or introductory wildlife lens for someone that is willing to spend a little bit of money for that extra versatility, the extra image quality, and that extra stop of light that you're going to get from it. So another thing to take note of that the 100 to 500 lacks is the 200 to 800 has full focal range with the 1.4 and the 2x teleconverters. So you can reach all the way out to 1600 millimeters at f18. Not fairly usable by my standards, but law enforcement and other people might find a use for that. So another thing that's being reported here is that the autofocus is great. We've seen that across the board with pretty much all of the RF glass. Some spotty ones here and there, like the 50 millimeter, but nothing that has left anything to really be desired. And the RF system is just phenomenal when it comes to autofocus. I have no complaints from anything from wildlife to shooting weddings and portraits and everything. It nails it pretty much 95% of the time. I do believe that dual pixel autofocus is a big part of that, and I know like on the R3 it's reported that up to negative 7.5 stops it's still going to find your subject and grab onto what you need it to. So by the way, I'm going to throw some pre-order links down below. This lens is dropping December 14th. So the Adorama links that you'll see below don't cost you any extra money, but it does help support the channel because I get about 2% kickback from that, and I reinvest every bit of that into the channel. As you can see, we've got a new light from everyone's help. Thank you very much. And real quick, if you're finding all this information useful, if you don't mind dropping a like, comment, and subscribe to the page. Now I'm going to cover why I particularly want this lens and why it's so desirable for me. And that is mostly the versatility that we've covered before. Also the fact that we are in the process of building a studio and I'm kind of trying to downsize a little bit. So getting rid of 2 lenses and being able to replace it with one is a huge benefit to me. Less shelf space, but also less bag space. Plus that pretty white paint. I know it's just a kind of optical thing and maybe I'm a little bit vain, but I just really love the look of those white lenses. There's something about them that just stands out to me. And I know that there's a purpose for it, basically to help it not attract as much heat and not hold that heat. and reflect some of those sun rays off, but to me, I just like the white lenses. Another thing that I kind of am future-proofing, I do like the idea of being able to use a 1.4 times extender, and it's very rare that I'm in a situation where I'm not close enough to my subject to capture it at 800 millimeters, but there are those times where you potentially can't reach them, or, you know, smaller subjects that just are a little bit skittish. I've ran into this issue with some baby foxes and some of the smaller birds that we capture. So that 1.4 times extender is very enticing to me, especially using it with the 100 to 500 as well. So having the versatility of being able to use it with two lenses just kind of speaks to me a little bit. I truly don't have any interest in the 2 times extender. I don't feel like I'll ever need to reach out that far, but just personal opinion. So with all that in mind, we are selling the 800 f11. This has the foot built into it. Well, I have it mounted to it. So that's a nice little benefit. If anyone's thinking about purchasing one of these, shoot me a message, and maybe we can work something out. I can ship it to you. It's in great condition. I still have the lens hood. It's not been dropped. It's not been used in any kind of, you know, inclement weather or anything like that. I do baby all of my gear because I pay for it out of pocket. The 100 to 400 is also going to be going, and I want to say this lens has maybe been used 2 to 3 times. Smooth functioning, crystal clear. Bought this one brand new. I bought both of these brand new, actually. And, you know, I haven't used them much lately. They pretty much came out during the summertime to shoot the bald eagles and some other kind of birds, and otherwise I haven't got to use them too much, which is a bummer because that's my favorite kind of photography to do. But drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about this lens and if you plan on purchasing it, and check out those Adorama links below. And thanks for coming by. We'll see you on the next episode.